The stars looked the same as they always had, cold and distant in the black void of space. Commander Zethkar pressed his scaled fingers against the smooth surface of his command chair and watched the endless darkness through the main viewing screen. His ship, the Deep Explorer, had been traveling for 3 months now, searching the outer edges of the galaxy for new worlds and lost civilizations. Zethkar belonged to a race called the Voidians. They were tall, with blue-gray skin and large eyes that could see far into space. Like the other 11 races in the Galactic Coalition, the Voidians were peaceful people who spent their time exploring, learning, and helping others. War was something they had left behind long ago. "Commander," called out his science officer from across the bridge, "we are picking up something strange ahead." Dr. Lysa Velthari was from the Kalari race, small beings with green skin and 4 arms that made them excellent at working with complex equipment. She had joined this mission because she loved studying old civilizations. Her job was to find clues about races that had lived and died long before the Coalition existed. "What kind of strange?" Zethkar asked, leaning forward in his chair. "Metal. Signatures, Commander. Lots of them. They are coming from the 3rd planet in this system." Lisa's 4 hands moved quickly over her control panel, bringing up numbers and charts on her screen. Zethkar stood up and walked over to look at her. "Readings. The 3rd planet was a blue and green world that looked like it might have once supported life, but their long-range scan showed no signs of current civilization. The planet appeared dead, with no radio signals, no lights, and no movement on its surface." "How much metal are we talking about?" he asked. "Commander, the readings are incredible. I count over 200,000 separate objects. They are all made of some kind of advanced metal alloy that I have never seen before, and they are all in orbit around the planet." The bridge fell silent. Even the usual humming of the ship's engines seemed quieter. 200,000 metal objects around a dead planet was not something they encountered every day. "Could they be natural formations, space rocks with high metal content?" Zethkar asked, though he already suspected the answer. Lisa shook her head, her large eyes reflecting the glow from her instruments. "No, Commander. The objects are too regular, too organized. They appear to be artificial constructs. And they are arranged in what looks like formations." "Formations?" "Military formations, sir, like they are positioned for battle." Zethkar felt a chill run down his spine. The Coalition had not seen real military formations for thousands of years. Their own ships were designed for exploration and peaceful contact, not warfare. The idea that some ancient race had left behind military vessels was both fascinating and terrifying. "Set course for the planet," he ordered, "but keep us at a safe distance. I want to see these objects for myself." The Deep Explorer changed direction, its engines pushing them toward the mysterious planet. As they got closer, the metal signatures became stronger and clearer. Lisa worked frantically at her station, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. "Commander, you need to look at this," she said, her voice filled with wonder and fear. The main viewing screen changed to show what their sensors were detecting. What they saw took their breath away. Surrounding the blue-green planet was a vast fleet of starships, all dark and silent, arranged in perfect military order. The ships were of different sizes, from small fighters that could hold maybe 1 or 2 crew members to massive vessels that were larger than anything the Coalition had ever built. "By the ancient stars," whispered Chief Engineer Kronvaldis, a member of the rock-like Terran race. "Look at the size of those larger ships. They must be 5 times bigger than our biggest vessels." The ships were not like anything they had ever seen. Where Coalition vessels were smooth and curved, designed for beauty and efficiency, these ships looked like they were built for one purpose only: war. They had sharp angles, thick armor plating, and what appeared to be weapon ports covering their surfaces. "How old are they?" Zethkar asked. Lysa ran more scans, her equipment working to analyze the metal and energy signatures. "Commander, if my readings are correct, these ships have been here for approximately 500,000 years. The number was so large it was hard to understand. 500,000 years ago, most of the Coalition races were still primitive, just learning to use fire and simple tools. Yet someone had built this incredible fleet and left it orbiting this dead world. Are they completely dead? Zethkar asked. No power? No life signs? That is the strangest part, Commander. The ships show no current activity, but they are not decaying. Something is preserving them, keeping them in perfect condition despite their age. I detect faint energy readings, like they are in some kind of deep sleep, rather than being completely shut down. Zethkar stared at the silent fleet on his screen. Hundreds of thousands of warships perfectly preserved, waiting in the darkness around a dead world. What race could have built such a massive military force? And why had they left it here, unused and forgotten? Commander, Lysa said quietly, there is something else. I am detecting symbols and markings on the ships. They all appear to be from the same civilization. This entire fleet belonged to one race. What happened to them? Where did they go? I do not know, sir, but whatever they were, they understood warfare in ways we cannot imagine. These ships are not just weapons. They are works of art dedicated to the science of battle. Zethkar made a decision that would change everything for the Galactic Coalition. Prepare the shuttle, he said. We are going aboard one of those ships. The shuttle moved slowly through the silent fleet, passing between massive warships that looked like sleeping giants. Commander Zethkar sat in the pilot's seat, his hands steady on the controls, even though his heart was beating fast. Behind him, Dr. Lysa Velthari checked her equipment one more time, while Chief Engineer Kron Valdez stared out the window at the ancient vessels. That one, Lysa pointed to a ship that was smaller than the giant battleships but still 3 times larger than their own Deep Explorer. It appears to be some kind of cruiser. Not too big, not too small. If we are going to board one of these ships, that might be our best choice. Zethkar nodded and guided the shuttle toward the chosen vessel. As they got closer, they could see details that their long-range sensors had missed. The ship's hull was covered with symbols and markings that looked like writing, but in a language none of them recognized. Strange designs ran along the sides of the ship, and what looked like weapon ports were sealed shut with metal covers. There, Kron pointed with one of his thick stone fingers. That looks like a docking port. The shuttle connected to the ancient ship with a soft thump. Their equipment showed that the ship had atmosphere inside, though it was old and stale. They put on their breathing masks and checked their translation devices before opening the airlock. The inside of the ship was dark, but their lights showed corridors and rooms that were built for beings roughly the same size as coalition races. The walls were made of the same strange metal as the outside, and everything had a feel of strength and purpose that was different from their own peaceful ships. The gravity is working, Kron said, surprised. After 500,000 years, this ship still has power for basic systems. They moved carefully through the corridors, their lights showing rooms filled with equipment they did not recognize. Some rooms had chairs and controls that looked like command centers. Others had what appeared to be weapon storage areas, though all the weapons had been removed long ago. Here, Lysa called from ahead. I found what looks like the main computer room. The room they entered was filled with dark screens and control panels. In the center was a large console with symbols glowing faintly in the darkness. Kron approached it carefully, pulling out his universal interface tools. These systems are unlike anything I have seen, he said as he worked, but they follow basic computer logic. I think I can connect our translation system to their database. It took him an hour of careful work, but finally the screens around them began to light up. Strange symbols appeared, then slowly changed into words they could understand as their translation system learned the ancient language. It is working, Lysa said excitedly. We are reading their data files. What they found in the computer made them all step back in shock. The files contained detailed records of a race that called themselves humans. But these were not the records of a peaceful civilization like their own. These were military files, battle reports, and tactical manuals that showed a species that had spent thousands of years learning how to fight wars. Look at this, Lysa said, her voice filled with wonder and fear. They have detailed studies of over 2,000 different battle tactics, plans for fighting in space on planets and asteroid fields even inside stars. This is a complete science of warfare. Zethkar read over her shoulder, trying to understand what he was seeing. The humans had not just fought wars, they had studied. War like the Coalition studied art or music. Every possible way of fighting had been examined, tested, and perfected. Here are their weapon designs, Crone said from another terminal. Energy weapons, projectile weapons, things that can destroy planets, but also defensive systems, shields, armor that can survive attacks that would destroy our ships completely. The more they read, the more amazed and frightened they became. The humans had fought wars against other humans, against alien races, against machines, and against things they could not even imagine. Yet in all their military records, there was something else that surprised them. "Lysa, look at this section," Zethkar called out. "These are not just records of conquest. Look at these files marked protection protocols and civilian defense plans." Lysa joined him at his terminal and began reading. Her large eyes grew even wider as she understood what she was seeing. "Commander, these humans did not fight just to destroy enemies. According to these records, most of their wars were fought to protect other beings. They have detailed plans for defending planets full of civilians, for evacuating populations under attack, for fighting battles where the goal was to save lives rather than take them." "That makes no sense," Crone said. "If they were such skilled warriors, why would they care about protecting others?" "Because," said a new voice from behind them, "that is what real warriors do." All three aliens spun around in shock. Standing in the doorway was a figure they had not expected to see. It was tall, about the same height as Zethkar, with smooth skin and hair on its head. It wore what looked like a military uniform covered with symbols of rank and achievement. "You are human," Lysa whispered. The figure smiled, showing white teeth. "Not exactly. I am Captain Jake Morrison, but I am not the original Jake Morrison. I am what you might call an artificial copy, created from his memories and personality. I was programmed to activate if anyone ever found this fleet and began accessing our computer systems." "You have been sleeping here for 500,000 years?" Zethkar asked. "In a way, yes. My people knew that someday other races would find our ships. We wanted to make sure that if that happened, someone would be here to explain what you have found and why we left it here." Jake Morrison looked around the computer room, seeing the files they had been reading. "I see you have been studying our military records. What do you think of what you have found?" "We do not understand," Zethkar said honestly. "Your people were incredibly skilled at warfare, but you also seem to care about protecting others. In our experience, military races are usually aggressive and try to conquer other worlds." Jake nodded. "That is a common mistake. Yes, we humans became very good at fighting. We had to because our history was full of wars and conflicts, but we learned something important over time. The best warriors are not the ones who love fighting. The best warriors are the ones who fight to protect what they love." As he spoke, more lights began coming on throughout the ship. Other systems that had been sleeping for 500,000 years were waking up. Through the windows, they could see lights appearing on other ships in the fleet as well. "What is happening?" Lysa asked, watching the displays around them come to life. "The fleet is activating," Jake said calmly. "Your arrival and your access to our systems has triggered our emergency protocols. After all this time, the human war fleet is waking up." Outside, across hundreds of thousands of ships, ancient engines were starting to hum with power. The greatest military force ever created was stirring from its long sleep, and three peaceful aliens were about to learn why humanity had built it and left it waiting in the darkness around their dead world. Captain Jake Morrison walked slowly around the computer room, touching the controls with gentle care. His movements were smooth and natural, making it easy to forget that he was not really alive in the way the three aliens understood life. Behind him, more lights were coming on as the ship continued to wake up from its long sleep. "You said you are not the real Jake Morrison," Dr. Lysa said, her forearms moving nervously. "But you seem so real." Jake smiled at her question. "I have all of his memories, his knowledge, his personality, even his sense of humor. In every way that matters, I am Jake Morrison. The only difference is that my body is made of advanced technology instead of flesh and blood." Where are the real humans? Commander Zethkar asked. What happened to your people? Before Jake could answer, two more figures appeared in the doorway. One was a woman with short brown hair wearing a uniform similar to Jake's, but with different symbols. The other was a man with broader shoulders and scars on his face that spoke of many battles. This is Lieutenant Lisa Hayes, Jake said, gesturing to the woman. She was one of our best pilots and tactical officers. And this is Sergeant Ben Turner, who knew more about ground combat than anyone in the fleet. Lisa stepped forward and looked at the three aliens with curious eyes. So you are the ones who found us. We have been waiting a long time for this moment. Waiting for what? Crone asked, his stone-like features showing confusion. Ben Turner crossed his arms and studied them carefully. Waiting for the galaxy to need us again. That is why we are here. Jake moved to one of the larger screens and began bringing up new information. To understand why this fleet exists, you need to know what happened to humanity. We did not die in a war or from disease. We evolved. Images appeared on the screen showing Earth as it once was, covered with cities and filled with billions of humans. The planet looked healthy and alive. Nothing like the dead world they had seen from orbit. About 500,000 years ago, humanity reached a point where we no longer needed physical bodies, Jake continued. We learned to exist as pure energy, as beings of thought and consciousness. We moved beyond the physical universe to explore higher dimensions of reality. You became gods, Lisa whispered. Not gods, Lisa said firmly. Just different. We kept our humanity, our values, our care for others. But we no longer needed planets or ships or physical forms. Then why did you leave this fleet behind? Zethkar asked. Jake turned to face them directly. Because we knew that someday other races would need what we had learned. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and peaceful civilizations like yours would eventually face threats they could not handle alone. Moved to another console and brought up tactical displays that showed battle formations and weapon systems. We spent thousands of years learning how to fight, not because we enjoyed war, but because we had to. Other races tried to destroy us, conquer us, enslave us. We learned to be warriors so we could remain free. But you were not just warriors, Zethkar observed, remembering the files they had read earlier. You fought to protect others too. That is the most important lesson we learned, Jake said. True strength is not about being able to destroy your enemies. It is about being able to protect the innocent. Every tactic in our database, every weapon design, every battle strategy was created with one goal: to defend those who cannot defend themselves. Lisa walked over to a wall display that showed the vast fleet surrounding them. We could have taken our military knowledge with us when we evolved, but we chose to leave it here, along with copies of ourselves to teach it to whoever found it. This fleet is our gift to the galaxy. A gift? Crone asked. These are weapons of war. No, Ben said, shaking his head. These are tools of protection. There is a difference, though many beings never learn it. A weapon used to attack the innocent is evil. The same weapon used to defend the innocent is righteous. Jake brought up new files on the screen, showing the technical specifications of the ships around them. Every vessel in this fleet was designed not just to fight, but to minimize harm to civilians and non-combatants. Our weapons can target military installations while leaving hospitals and schools untouched. Our shields can protect entire planets from attack. We studied the patterns of the galaxy, Lisa added. Every few 100,000 years, a great threat emerges that peaceful civilizations cannot handle. Invaders from other galaxies, machine races that consume everything in their path, beings of pure destruction that exist only to cause suffering. And, you believe such a threat is coming now? Lisa asked. Ben nodded grimly. The fleet's sensors have been monitoring the galaxy even while we slept. 3 days ago, they detected something approaching from beyond the edge of known space. Something that matches the patterns we learned to recognize. The main screen changed to show a long-range sensor reading. Far away, at the very edge of their detection range, something large was moving toward Coalition space. The readings were unclear, but they suggested a massive force of unknown ships. "What is it?" Zethkar asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. "We call them devourers," Jake said quietly. "They are machines, but not like any machines you know. They consume entire worlds to build more of themselves. They have no interest in negotiation, no concept of mercy. They exist, only to grow by destroying everything else." "How long do we have?" Zethkar asked. Lisa checked her readings. "Based on their current speed, they will reach the outer edge of Coalition space in approximately 6 months. Their main fleet will arrive 3 months after that." "Your Coalition fleets cannot stop them," Ben said bluntly. "Your ships are built for exploration and peacekeeping, not for war against an enemy like this. Without help, every world in Coalition space will be consumed." "But you can help us," Lisa said, understanding beginning to dawn in her large eyes. Jake nodded. "That is why we are here. The human fleet contains everything you need to fight the Devourers, ships designed for war, weapons that can destroy their machines, tactics proven in battle against similar enemies." "There is only one problem," Lisa said. "We can teach you our knowledge, but you will have to use it. Your people will have to become warriors, at least temporarily. You will have to learn to fight." Ben stepped forward, his scarred face serious. "The question is, are you willing to learn? Are you prepared to become something you have never been before in order to protect everything you care about?" "Commander." Zethkar looked at his 2 companions, seeing the same mixture of fear and determination in their eyes that he felt in his own heart. They were peaceful explorers, not soldiers, but the alternative was watching their entire civilization be destroyed. "Teach us," he said quietly. "Show us how to be warriors like humans." Jake smiled, and for a moment he looked exactly like the flesh and blood human he had once been. "Then let us begin. You have 6 months to learn what took us thousands of years to master. But do not worry. We will teach you not just how to fight, but how to remain good beings while you do it. That is the most important lesson of all." The news spread through Coalition space like fire through dry grass. Within days, every world knew about the discovery of the human fleet and the approaching threat of the Devourers. The reaction was not what Commander Zethkar had expected. On D. The Coalition capital world of Harmony Prime, the Grand Council met in emergency session. Representatives from all 12 member races gathered in the Great Circular Chamber, their voices rising in heated debate. Some wanted to accept the human gift and learn their military knowledge. Others feared what such power might do to their peaceful civilization. Senator Kreen Thessar stood at the center of the chamber, his tall frame commanding attention from the other council members. He belonged to the Altarian race, beings known for their logical minds and careful thinking. But today his logic was colored by deep fear. "We have lived in peace for 10,000 years, he declared, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "We have built a civilization based on cooperation, understanding, and the sharing of knowledge. Now you ask us to throw all of that away for the teachings of a warrior race." Murmurs of agreement came from several sections of the chamber. Many of the council members had never seen real warfare and could not imagine their people as soldiers. "The humans may claim they fought to protect others," Senator Thessar continued, "but look at what they created. Hundreds of thousands of warships, weapons capable of destroying planets, battle tactics designed for maximum destruction. This is not the legacy of protectors. This is the legacy of a race that loved war." Dr. Lisa Velthari stood up from her place in the observers section. As the discoverer of the fleet, she had been granted permission to address the council. "Senator Thessar, with respect, you have not seen what I have seen. You have not spoken with the human constructs or studied their records." "And what have you learned, Doctor?" another senator asked. This was Councillor Vex Moran, from the Drakmari, a race of reptilian beings known for their cautious nature. "I have learned that the humans were like us once," Lisa replied. "They were explorers, artists, philosophers. They did not choose to become warriors. They were forced to by circumstances beyond their control." She activated a holographic display that showed images from the human databases. Their history shows thousands of years of struggle against enemies who gave them no choice but to fight or die. Pirates who raided their colonies, machine races that wanted to enslave them, alien empires that saw them as nothing more than resources to be harvested. That may be true, Senator Thessar said, but look what it made them into. A race so focused on war that they built the largest military fleet in galactic history. Do we want to become like that? They also evolved beyond physical existence, Lisa pointed out. They transcended warfare entirely. The fleet they left behind was not for conquest, but for protection of others. They could have taken their knowledge with them, but they chose to leave it for races like us who might need it. The debate continued for hours with passionate arguments on both sides. Some representatives spoke of their duty to protect their citizens. Others worried about the corruption that military power might bring to their peaceful society. A few even suggested that the devourer threat might not be as serious as the humans claimed. Meanwhile, long-range sensors at the edge of Coalition space were proving just how serious the threat really was. Admiral Trox Zealand of the Coalition Defense Force stood in the command center on Border Station 7, watching the sensor displays with growing horror. "How many ships are we tracking now?" he asked his sensor officer. "Over 3 million, Admiral," came the reply. "And they are all moving directly toward our space. No deviation, no slowing down, no attempts at communication." Admiral Zealand was a veteran officer from the Centauri race, beings with blue skin and silver hair who were known for their military discipline. But even he had never imagined facing an enemy fleet of such massive size. "Sir," another officer called out, "we are receiving reports from our outer colonies. The Devourer advanced scouts have reached the mining stations in the Kepler system." "What are they doing?" "They are not attacking the stations, sir. They are consuming them. Completely. Our last transmission showed the machines literally eating the metal structures and converting the material into more of themselves." The room fell silent as everyone understood what this meant. The Devourers were not just an invading army. They were a growing plague that got stronger with every world they consumed. Back on the human ship, Captain Jake Morrison and his companions were watching the Coalition debates through intercepted communications. The 3 original discoverers had returned to their own ship, but they stayed in constant contact with the human constructs. "They are afraid," Lieutenant Lisa Hayes observed. "They have never faced anything like this before. Can you blame them?" Sergeant Ben Turner asked. "We are asking them to change everything they believe about themselves." Jake studied the sensor readings from the approaching Devourer fleet. "The advanced scouts are already testing their defenses. In 3 weeks, those scouts will reach populated worlds. The Coalition fleet cannot stop even the advance force, let alone the main army." "What if they refuse our help?" Lisa asked. "Then billions of innocent beings will die," Ben said grimly. "And eventually the Devourers will have consumed enough resources to threaten the entire galaxy." On the Coalition capital world, the Grand Council was reaching a decision. Senator Thessar had gathered enough support to pass a resolution that shocked many observers. "The Council has decided," he announced, "that the human fleet represents too great a risk to our civilization. We will not accept their military knowledge or their weapons. Instead, we will attempt to negotiate with the approaching force and find a peaceful solution." "And if negotiation fails?" Dr. Lisa asked. "Then we will evacuate our worlds and seek refuge in other parts of the galaxy. We will not become a warrior race, even to save ourselves." Commander Zethkar watched the council session from his ship's communication screen, feeling a mixture of anger and despair. He looked at his crew, seeing the same emotions reflected in their faces. "Commander," his communications officer called out, "we are receiving a priority message from Border Station 7. The message was brief but terrifying. The Devourer advanced scouts had reached the outer colonies. 3 worlds had been completely consumed in a matter of hours. The mining stations were gone, the orbital platforms were gone, and over 2 million colonists had simply vanished. "Sir," the officer continued, "Admiral Zealand is requesting immediate reinforcements, but he also says that all Coalition ships combined would not be enough to stop even the advance force." Commander Zethkar made a decision that would define the rest of his life. "Set course for the human fleet," he ordered. "Send a message to all coalition ship commanders who are willing to listen. Tell them we are going to learn human warfare whether the Council approves or not." "Sir, that would be direct disobedience of Council orders," his first officer warned. "Yes, it would," Zethkar replied. "But sometimes you have to choose between following orders and doing what is right." The humans understood that choice. Now, it is our turn to understand it. As his ship turned toward the ancient human fleet, Zethkar hoped he was making the right decision. The Council wanted to preserve their peaceful civilization, but there would be no civilization left to preserve if the Devourers were not stopped. Sometimes, he was learning, peace had to be defended with strength. Behind him, other coalition ships were breaking formation and following his lead. Not all of them, but enough. The galaxy's most peaceful races were about to become students of war, learning from the greatest warriors who had ever lived. 6 months had passed since Commander Zethkar made his fateful decision to learn from the humans. During that time, the ancient fleet had become a training ground where peaceful coalition beings learned the harsh lessons of warfare. The transformation was remarkable and frightening to watch. Lieutenant Lisa Hayes stood in the flight training bay of one of the human carriers, watching a group of Kalari pilots practice combat maneuvers. The small green aliens had taken to fighter combat with surprising skill, their forearms allowing them to control multiple systems at once while their quick reflexes helped them dodge enemy fire. "Remember," Lisa called out over the communication system, "you are not just trying to destroy the enemy. You are trying to protect the transport ships behind you. Every Devourer fighter you miss might kill 1,000 civilians." One of the Kalari pilots, a young female named Vera Quinn, pulled her fighter through a difficult spinning turn and fired at a training target. Her shots hit perfectly, destroying the simulated enemy ship. "Like this, Lieutenant Hayes?" "Exactly like that, Vera. You are thinking like a protector, not just a warrior. That is the difference between human fighting and simple aggression." In another part of the fleet, Sergeant Ben Turner was working with ground forces from multiple coalition races. The Rocky Terrans had proven excellent at defensive tactics, while the quick Voidians excelled at reconnaissance and rapid strikes. Ben was teaching them something that went against everything they had been taught about conflict resolution. "Sometimes," he explained to a group of Drakmari soldiers, "talking is not enough. Sometimes the enemy will not listen to reason, will not negotiate, will not stop unless you make them stop. The Devourers are such an enemy." A young Drakmari named Kes Vorthak raised his clawed hand. "But Sergeant Turner, how do we fight without becoming like the enemy ourselves? How do we use violence without losing our souls?" Ben smiled grimly. "That is the most important question you can ask, Kes. The answer is that you never fight for yourself. You fight for others. Every time you pull a trigger, every time you fire a weapon, you remember that you are doing it to save someone else's life. That keeps you human no matter what race you actually are." Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison worked with the coalition admirals in the main strategy center. Admiral Trock Zealand had joined the training program against direct orders from the Grand Council, bringing with him nearly half of the coalition defense force. "The key to fighting the Devourers," Jake explained, pointing to tactical displays, "is not to fight them the way they expect. They are machines, so they think like machines. They expect logical, predictable tactics. Human warfare is built on being unpredictable." "But how can we be unpredictable when we have so few ships compared to them?" Admiral Zealand asked. "By making every ship count for 10, Jake replied. "By hitting them where they do not expect, when they do not expect it, with weapons they have never seen before. By fighting not just with ships and guns, but with hope and determination and the absolute refusal to give up." The training was intense and difficult. Many coalition beings struggled with the concepts of military tactics. Others found it emotionally hard to learn how to kill, even in defense of others. But slowly, they began to understand what the humans had known for millennia. Sometimes good people had to do hard things to protect innocent lives. The test came sooner than anyone expected. Long-range sensors detected the main Devourer fleet. approaching the coalition border 3 weeks ahead of schedule. The enemy had consumed the outer colonies faster than predicted and was now ready for their final assault on coalition space. "How many ships are we facing?" Commander Zethkar asked, from the bridge of his newly modified cruiser. The coalition had spent the last month retrofitting their vessels with human weapons and defensive systems. Sensor readings show approximately 8 million Devourer vessels, Admiral Zealand reported grimly. They range from small fighters to planet-killer dreadnoughts. It is the largest invasion force in recorded galactic history. "And how many ships do we have?" Counting the human fleet and all coalition vessels that joined the training program, we have just over 500,000 ships. The numbers were terrifying. The coalition force was outnumbered 16-1. Under normal circumstances, it would be a hopeless battle. But these were not normal circumstances, and they were no longer the same peaceful beings who had discovered the human fleet 6 months ago. Jake Morrison appeared on the main communication screen, addressing all the ships in the combined fleet. "Captains and crew of the Coalition Human Defense Force, today you face your greatest test. The enemy believes you are weak because you have chosen peace. They believe you will run or surrender when faced with overwhelming odds." He paused, looking directly into the camera with eyes that had seen countless battles. "They are wrong. You have learned in 6 months what it took humanity thousands of years to understand. You know now that true strength comes not from the desire to destroy but from the willingness to sacrifice everything to protect others." Lisa Hayes took over the communication. "Fighter pilots, remember your training. You are not just flying ships, you are flying hope. Every enemy you stop is a world that remains free." Ben Turner spoke to the ground forces preparing to defend key planets. "Soldiers, you have learned to fight, but you have not forgotten who you are. You fight today not because you hate what stands before you, but because you love what stands behind you." The battle began at the edge of Coalition space, where the human battleships met the first wave of Devourer forces. The ancient weapons, dormant for 500,000 years, fired for the first time since humanity's final wars. Energy beams that could crack moons struck out at the mechanical invaders, while coalition ships using human tactics struck from unexpected angles. The Devourers had expected to face the same peaceful civilization they had detected months ago. Instead, they found themselves fighting beings who had learned the human art of war. Coalition fighters darted through their formations like angry insects, too fast and unpredictable for the machine minds to track. Human battle tactics, refined over millennia of conflict, proved devastatingly effective against an enemy that relied on overwhelming numbers and logical attack patterns. "They are falling back," Admiral Zealand reported with amazement. "The first wave is actually retreating," but Jake Morrison's expression remained serious. "That was just a probe. They are learning our capabilities. The real battle is about to begin." For 3 days and nights, the combined fleet fought against wave after wave of Devourer attacks. Ships were lost, heroes died, and entire sections of space became graveyards of twisted metal. But something remarkable was happening. The coalition beings were not just surviving the battle, they were winning it. Dr. Lisa Velthari, now serving as a tactical coordinator, watched the final engagement from the command ship. The surviving Devourer fleet, reduced to less than 80 million vessels, was retreating toward the edge of the galaxy. "We did it," she whispered, hardly believing what she was seeing. "We actually won." Commander Zethkar stood beside her, looking older than he had 6 months ago, but with a new strength in his eyes. "We learned to be warriors when we had to, but we did not lose ourselves in the process. We remained protectors." Jake Morrison materialized beside them, his artificial form flickering slightly. "You have honored the human legacy better than we ever dared hope. You have proven that peaceful beings can become warriors when necessary, and warriors can remain good when they remember why they fight." The war was over, but the galaxy was forever changed. The coalition had learned that sometimes peace must be defended with strength, and that the capacity for war did not make one evil. The human fleet became the guardian force of coalition space, with the AI constructs continuing to teach the lessons of honorable warfare to new generations. In her final report, Dr. Lysa wrote, "We came seeking the past and found our future. In learning to fight like humans, we learned to protect like them too. 500,000 years later, humanity still teaches the galaxy what it means to be strong enough to defend the weak."